Better mute your mic. Don't cough and choke on the show, okay?
All right.
All right.
And by the way, I'm going to try not to talk too much.
Well, don't talk until you're asked to, because it's going to be basically me and Brian having a
That's fine.
dialogue.
But what I'm saying is I cannot talk. I have
Uh-huh.
the dog lifted up and took out my last tooth in my mouth,
Oh no.
and
Oh.
it's not out yet. It's not quite loose enough. Tried to
Oh,
get
I
a
see. You
plier
can't
on
talk
it.
to talk. I understand.
So every time I use a hard consonant, it kills me.
Oh God. Okay. Well, I won't ask you to talk.
All right, I'm going to mute.
Okay.
Now I don't have to play any video or anything for this one, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless you want to customize it for yours.
I'll
So
see if I can find some praying mantis stuff.
I got some praying mantis that I'm going to show. So
All right.
just rest easy, okay? Let's see.
Hello,
Hey, is that you, Brian?
it's Maurice.
Hi, Maurice. How are you?
Good, how are
Hey.
you?
Good.
Should I,
We're
mu-
waiting for the guests to show
I
up.
mute myself?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right. You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. Let's see, how am I going to mute this?
Down on the lower bar, there's a microphone.
Yeah, on the left, yeah.
Okay.
Mute my audio. All right, I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Audio settings. So, Jesus.
It is all the way to the left, the little microphone. When you speak, it
Right.
shows green. You just click that and it'll mute.
I think I can mute you. I muted. I muted her. It's okay. David is here.
Here we go.
Hello, David.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good to see you. How are you doing?
I haven't been out of bed for 3 days, but you know, that's the way it goes.
Oh,
We have good days and bad days.
yeah. Oh,
So-
John Brandenburg is here.
Oh, he is?
Hey,
Where's
Robert, how you
Hello,
doing?
John. Hi.
Oh, there's David. There's David. I knew
Where's
he's this
Big John?
distinguished gentleman. Distinguished looking gentleman.
Yeah, let's see your lovely face in there. You know,
Oh, okay. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, we have time. I think we're gonna give it 5 minutes or 7:05 or 7:10, depending. I gotta get the principal guest. The principal guest is missing at the moment. We'll find out why.
Okay, here, let me get organized here.
Yeah.
All right. Didn't recognize you without your beard.
Yeah, I decided to, you know, I got to trim the mustache a little bit. It might even go. Who knows?
Oh,
Yeah. So, well, you look like you've lost a little weight, John.
well, I'm trying. I'm trying. You know, it's just gotta, I want to chisel it down before winter. You know, it gets kind of cold around here, and you tend to start making like a bear. You know, getting ready for hibernation.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, we're waiting for you. Oh, you are? I didn't see you come in. Okay. All right.
Here, just excuse me for just a minute here.
Okay. All right. See you soon.
Right back.
Ted is floating in space. I'm concerned.
That's right. I'm heading space.
You must be astro traveling again. Your paranormal experiences are really impressive.
Yeah.
Regularly. I've had a few and a few more recently. Let's see, we got
I'm
Brian
sure we'll hear
here.
about them.
Oh yeah, you will. You'll hear about the mantis experiences that I've had.
I want to, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
And,
we have John Brandenburg here. I was with your video with him before.
Yeah.
What a big honor. He's the great physicist guy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
the warlord of Mars.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
David. Hi, David. I guess we haven't met. Hi, David.
I'm going to record the program. I'm going to ask Brian not to wax rich on Alan Dulles because he's not my favorite person.
He's not your favorite person?
Not at all, because he
No. I have some doubts about that. I was more thinking about
loathsome. I'll ask you why, but he's a loathsome murderer. He's a traitor, and he organized the assassination of President Kennedy, which I'll talk.
Yeah, I guess I have to explain. I have my doubts about that too. I was thinking more.
Yeah, but I'm going to talk about him, and I'm going to talk about James Jesus Angleton.
Yes. Oh.
And I'm going to tell you about how they conjured the praying mantis, and
we have to say this for the tape. That's like the most important thing of the whole tape. Absolutely.
Well, I'm interested in hearing your take on it. And let me see. We're going to give it another 5 minutes to give people. I told Alan that I'd be very happy with just a handful of people.
Yeah.
So keep it.
I did invite one experiencer. I know April, but she wasn't sure whether she's coming or not.
Okay.
April Cotton Dick. Yeah, she's an experiencer.
Yeah, I'm going to try and turn on my screen share right now so I can show a couple of things. And
yeah, you can test it.
Right, let's see if it kicks in. Movies. I guess, this one, I can start.
Want to say hi to John Brandenburg. Hi there, Brian.
Hey there, hello, University Galacticus. Are you head of the department there? Or?
I'm the dean of University Galacticus, such as I am.
All right, very good, very good.
But I wore a red bow tie for you today. Wow, John Brandenburg's here, the famous physicist guy on Mars. Wow, we met once before on one of Robert's videos, so honored to meet you again.
Right.
Looking forward to our discussions.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start in 2 minutes. Everybody got the message.
I do like your tie. I do like your tie.
I did it for you. Oh,
yeah, you're Tucker Carlson.
I'm deeply honored. David, listen to this.
The Tucker Carlson tie.
Deserves a cameo in our movie.
Yeah, I think so. He's got the right look.
It's got the right look. We could find him. Whoops.
Here goes Robert. Robert disappeared. He's doing something.
Yeah, I'm setting up the screen share. I want to show a couple of things, a couple of book covers. I want to talk about my friend Robert Collins, who gave me a lot of information about the mantis. He was quite a guy.
So did they create the tall mantids or tall grays or the short grays? I mean,
the short grays, as I understand.
Well, those are the robotic pieces of shit, aren't they? I mean,
yeah, they're slaves.
Mm-hmm. The tall grays.
Can you see the screen? Exempt from disclosure.
Yeah. Yep. Exempt from disclosure. That sounds like us.
That's right.
Yeah, we are. I am. And I have some documents.
All right.
Oh, with Doty, huh?
Yeah.
I never know how to take that.
Yeah, they work together, but then they split over this book. But
They split over disclosure. How interesting.
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird, you know. As I always said to Robert Collins, I trust you, but I don't trust Doty, because FTD, Foreign Technology Division, he was an intelligence officer. The guy always wanted to tell the truth, and the other guy was a FOSI, Air Force Office of Scientific or Special Investigations, and they were just covering up everything. So let's see, it's 7:05. I think I'm going to start the recording and we'll get right into it. Switch over. Oh, I gotta stop the screen share to start the recording.
No.
Let's see. Okay, if everyone would mute, please, except Brian Ruhi. I like to pronounce it in German way. Ruha.
Yeah, we just say Ru, but the proper is Rua. But I just say Ru.
Okay. I'm gonna try this record to cloud today so that we just get a link and then I'll be able to share it with all of you.
Recording in progress.
Greetings and welcome to this special edition of Morningstar Report in collaboration with Beyond Undisclosed, which is a YouTube channel that deals with things that are beyond undisclosed. Today, the subject is contact with extraterrestrials. In particular, a special group of extraterrestrials, which seem to be the overlords. There was a movie made back in the 1970s called Overlords of the UFOs. And though it's dated, I thought that it was one of the best UFO films. It was not a video, it was a film actually, on the subject of UFOs and all of the strange goings on, contacts. But it never dealt very deeply specifically with the contact that humans have had and have been having with alien entities. Speaking about the United States government has been in contact with aliens since at least the early 1940s, way before Roswell. And I may speak about Einstein and Oppenheimer's letter to Truman in 1947 regarding how to deal with a group of extraterrestrials who have decided to settle on planet Earth. They did not ask for permission, and they just informed the powers that be that they had decided to settle on planet Earth. And the subject today, of course, is the praying mantis, because I do consider them birds of the UFO. From everything I've learned over the years and my own personal experience of them in 1997, I've learned a lot. When a human being makes contact with an extraterrestrial, a certain portal is open, a mind telepathic channel is open. And while the person is in the emergency state of having to deal with this otherworldly experience, while the ego is dealing with surviving that experience, when the alien opens the alien mind scan or the telepathic channel to communicate their message to you or to the individual, they don't realize that the human soul opens another channel and goes into their minds. And while the ego mind is dealing with the immediate situation, the face-to-face confrontation, contact, the soul enters the mind of the alien entity, and it returns with knowledge. It returns with quite a bit of knowledge that the alien entity did not necessarily wish to impart. I think of it in terms of induction, in terms of you cross a wire through a magnetic field, you get electricity to flow through the wire. If you take two magnetic fields and overlap them, you're going to get quite an interaction of the magnetic fields, the information in there. And if a wire is passed through two magnetic fields at the same time, I'm sure the wire is going to be conducting electricity being generated by both magnetic fields. So that's my analogy to express to you what I feel I experienced in 1997. In a minute or two, we are going to, actually less than a minute, this is a short video. I have another one that's a little longer about the mantids. We're going to welcome our guest, Brian Ruha, who has written a book specifically about the praying mantids. But right now, I'd like to play for you this very short clip of dealing with the praying mantis as a predator like no other.
Have you
Let's see if it runs.
ever seen a praying mantis? These fascinating insects are known for their unique appearance and predatory behavior. They have a triangular head with two big eyes and strong front legs used for catching prey. Praying mantis is found all over the world, and there are over 2,400 species of praying mantises. They patiently wait for their prey to come close enough to strike. They are also known for their ability to camouflage themselves and blend into their surroundings. Praying mantis have been known to eat a variety of insects and even other praying mantis. But did you know that praying mantis have been observed eating small reptiles and even birds? Another interesting fact about praying mantis is their unique mating behavior. In some species, the female will sometimes eat the male after mating. This is known as sexual cannibalism and is thought to provide the female with extra nutrients to produce healthy eggs.
Well, there's a nice short introduction. Can you still see the screen, my friends? Exempt from disclosure should be on the screen.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, very good. Before I bring on my guest, I want to remember a very dear friend, a man who dedicated his life to disclosure. He's Captain Robert M. Collins, United States Air Force, who served with the FTD, the Foreign Technology Division. He wrote this book about 15 years ago, Exempt from Disclosure, and he did it without the permission of the Air Force or the CIA or anybody. He was a real renegade. He felt that freedom of speech and freedom of information was very important to all of us, to all Americans, and he felt it was his duty to bring to world attention UFO reality and the nature of the alien. This is the cover of his book. This is actually, he affirmed that this is a real photograph of a great alien. And as you see, it has big black eyes, it has a small triangular head, and the morphology of this creature is related to the praying mantis, and we will discuss that a bit later. I'd like to point out here, I'm very proud of this. This is the table of contents. As you see here, it says FTD is not a florist. I'm very proud of the fact that Robert Collins trusted me to publish that very first chapter in UFO Digest. And he had as you can see, he had an interesting sense of humor. FTD is not a florist. No, it stands for the Foreign Technology Division of the United States Air Force. And while I have the screen share working, let me go to the book that we are talking about today to introduce my guest, Brian Ruha. An ET hypothesis with sources, how the Greys, Mantids, and a federation of planets are guiding the spiritual evolution of humanity. Okay, with that, I will cease the screen share. I'll bring it back on later. And I will return to the panel. Brian, thank you for being with us. Maurice, if you'd like to turn on your camera, it'd be very nice to see a pretty face amongst these bearded wonders. And so, Brian, welcome to the program. I see you have a pet with you there.
Yeah, Happy Cat. He wants 1,000,000 hits in 5 years. I usually start off my videos with him. He was patiently waiting for the introduction. So this is Happy Cat. Hi to everybody. John, David, Robert, Marie.
Well, thank you for being here. Very spontaneous thing. Earlier in the week, Brian sent me a copy of his book, and I said, this is the time to do it. Let's promote it. That's quite a creature you have there, man. He's big.
Yeah. People
Rather.
comment on how calm he is. He's my pet. This convinces people I must be a nice guy if my cat loves me. I'm just doing this for my PR.
That's good. That's a nice image. So, Maurice, you can lower your camera a little bit so we have your whole head in the picture. That's very good. That's not so. So let's go to Brian. Tell us about your book.
Yeah, well, I would call it a booklet. It's like an essay. It's a blog on my website, about 6,300 words. Yeah, I guess I worked on it for a long time. It says based upon 3,000 hours of research plus 9,000 hours of reflection. So, like since about 2006, I've been immersed in ufology. But it's called an ET hypothesis and sources. So, I tried to give an overview hypothesis of the whole situation. It's in 17 different sections, divided, a little over a page each. It's sort of my condensed. It's something that someone can read in 45 minutes about the major aspects of the whole UFO ET relationship with humanity. But at the highest aspect of it, it is really about the mantids. In my view, they're kind of like gurus of the galaxy. They bring life across the galaxy, and the Greys work for the mantids like technicians. So I think in relation to planet Earth, they're like the architects of life on planet Earth. I think they probably brought life here for the whole 4.6 billion years. Like for example, the Cambrian explosion 520 million years ago, larger plants and animals came to Earth, and science really can't explain how this happened so fast. And some sources say mantids have lifespan of billions of years, and people have encountered them tremendous wise, lots of love. They're very wise, and even Richard Dolan says when the mantids are seen with the Greys or other creatures, the mantids are always in charge. So it seems to be, even Richard Dolan stated in his book Alien Agendas that this is perhaps the highest intelligence humanity's yet encountered. So I have a positive view on the mantids based upon like witness experiences. For instance, I've done many videos with Mary Rodwell in Australia, and she says of 3,000 families she's worked with, well, 70% have had experience with the mantids, and they're quite positive experiences. Yeah, so I give this a lot of thought and experience, and so I sort of begin my my hypothesis from that view, and then all the other aspects kind of flow from that. I think there are perhaps certainly an intelligence above the mantis. I don't think they're like God, not God of the universe, but I think they're pretty much the lawful government of planet Earth, where the legitimate authorities, like I say, these are legitimate authorities and true government of planet Earth, the mantis, and they work primarily with the Greys, like many species. I think there's like a Federation of Planets type of situation, but the Greys are most skilled, or just to quote some of my sources, Susie Anson says the Greys are most skilled or suited for the job of working on with humans on specifically like the hybridization program. That's why people see Greys more than others, but there's others involved, like various species like the Arcturians or Palladians or White Nordics or whatever. But I think of the mantids as the central sort of organizing principle. I'm not going to go on and on, unless you want some back and forth discussion on it.
Well, I'd like to ask you, first of all, have you had contact? And not necessarily with the mantids, have you had contact with ETs or their ambassadors? Because people do believe, people in the know do believe that they send their delegations. It's very hard to hide when you're 7 feet tall with 2 foot long antenna. So it's my suspicion that they engineered the short Greys to do these.
Well, I guess I'd ask
breaking and entering. They're really fast too. I've read that nothing on planet Earth runs as fast as a short gray alien. They're very separate in many ways. But
I guess
that's my question. Have you had contact of any?
yeah. To answer your question, I have to. The guess basic answer is no. However, I've worked with someone who has direct contact with one mantid. So I think there's one particular mantid. Logically, I would assume that mantid does know me because Jeff Selver here in Vancouver has published a book, The Rising, the Alien Plan to Build and Enlighten City on Earth. And, you know, I hosted like his first 25 hours of videos. We met in person many times. And we had questions to discuss about history. We had differences in views. So his works with one particular gray he calls the elder all throughout his life. He's 48 years old. No, so the gray actually elder suggests him, why don't you and Brian talk once a week and discuss this matter back and forth? So we had this ongoing back and forth communication, so I could communicate with her through Jeff Selver. But the reason this relates to Mantid, in his contact experience, he writes about this, describes in his video. And one of his contact experience, like around the 10th or 11th contact experience, he was on a large craft with his elder and other grays, and they introduced to them the mantid architect of the whole project that his life is all about. And he had first this kind of visceral reaction seeing this particular mantid. And the mantid looked kind of like not your typical mantid, more like an aardvark. But anyways, they explained to him, and the mantid explained he was the architect of the whole program, I guess his section that he's in, including his life. And the Greys actually told him, you know, we know a lot about your future. They described, you know, his future coming up 20 years in the future. So they said, they know a lot about someone's future. They don't know everything. They clearly state they don't know everything. But the point is they've known a lot about his future. And in 2016, he was on a craft, and they said to him, we want you to write a book. You need a thing called an ISBN number. He didn't know what that was. But I'm the one that actually found the layout person, Desta Barnaby, who did the layout for his book. And he prints on his book. So I made these connections for him. I was the first one in the UFO community to actually recognize them. So that means logically, at least according to what he teaches,
Let's promote his book a little bit.
Were aware of me, and the mantid would be aware of me. So I say this mantid knows me, but I have not had any personal direct experience with an ET myself.
Let's promote your friend's book. Let's promote your friend's book. What is your friend's name, and what is the name of the book?
It's Jeff Selver, Selver. Jeff Selver. It's called The Rising. It's on Amazon. Yeah, highly recommend the book. I've been reading it since the first draft, and he's done many videos. His website is jeffselver.com, and he's got a YouTube channel, Jeff Selver. There's some really good, and he's very articulate about his own experiences, so I highly recommend. And he's a local Vancouver boy, local fellow, yeah.
Well, you know, there's a lot of activity in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And currently ongoing intrusions, visitations, abductions, and, you know, abductions, and they put them back. A friend of mine found a huge bruise on his son's thigh. He took his son to a swimming meet, and when he got on the board or on the blocks, he saw these two giant bruises on his thigh. He sent it to me, and I said, it looks to me like Bigfoot grabbed your son and held him up by his legs. You know, that it was so thick. But the aliens do have several bases in British Columbia that have been granted to them by a treaty. The United States government and Canada signed treaties with them back in the 1950s. I have a copy of the treaty. Perhaps later in the program, I'll read you some of the points in there. And I also have a list of the four categories of extraterrestrials that the deep state, the CIA, categorized. And one of them, the one I think that relates to the mantids, there's one that's called cryptids or insectoids, but transmorphic entities. They have the ability to appear in the blink of an eye and disappear in the blink of an eye. And they can travel, in my personal experience, from one corner of a room 20 feet in less than half a second in the blink of an eye with no visible sign of motion. So what sparked your interest in alien contact? Do you feel perhaps that you had a telepathic contact with aliens and not necessarily face to face?
Yeah, I think so. What happened to me, I mean, I could give a long story, but keep it short. In April of 1994, I was initiated into a deity visualization practice in Tibetan Buddhism. I was a member of that. Huh? Yeah, I was a member of Shambhala International. I was actually living in Thailand at the time, Theravada tradition, but I was initiated into higher realm practices, and it's actually in my book. I have it here. Chapter 9 is how to invoke devas. It's a more of a Tibetan Buddhist practice on how to connect with deity. So I simply switched that in 2022 to ETs instead of devas. So I've taught this to thousands of people, this Buddhist practice of basically channeling to devas, and I switched that to ETs. So yeah, definitely. What I actually do in terms of my practice is on our logo here of University of Galactus. This is like a city-sized mothership. This is actually described by Susie Hansen and other witnesses of beyond these ships. And I visualize the lecture hall that Susie Hansen has been to and others with the mantids there and the ancient grays and the grays and even humans. So my whole really core central meditation practice, which I've taught in my videos as well, is to connect with the ETs there. You visualize yourself. So it's an attempt at a bilocation practice. So I've had some connection with this type of practice. So I feel this is how I get my communication or inspiration or even some guidance from the ETs. In fact, I got some statues here, my mantid and my gray friends. One of my volunteers is an artist, and she makes this. Jennifer McKenzie in Manitoba, Canada. She's got a website. She makes these. So I'll right in my shrine by the Buddha, right beside the Buddha, I have the mantid on the Buddha's right and the gray on the Buddha's left. So it's part of my like Deva visualization practice I've been doing since 1994, and I'm using it. And I think, not to go off topic, but I think Buddhism could really develop from this. It's something Buddhists could do to connect with ETs instead of just the devas described 2,500 years ago by the Buddha. That's a whole other conversation. So I feel I've had some indirect.
Yeah. One of the reasons that we haven't had disclosure is something called the Brookings Institution did a study in 1964 to 67 for NASA on what the United States government should do if we had made contact or discovered intelligent life in outer space. And they said that it would be so disruptive to society, in particular to scientists, engineers, and doctors, that they would be so disheartened that they might not get out of bed to go to work when faced with the prospect of having to catch up with a civilization and a science that was hundreds of years ahead of us. But one of the things, the other things that they said was that religions would be affected and disrupted. And they cited the Buddhist religion as part of it. I said, this is total malarkey.
I think Buddhists would adapt better.
Nobody is better adapted or ready to incorporate ET reality into their belief system than Buddhists.
Thank you, Robert. It's so true. That's what I've been saying. And we could talk about fundamentalist Christians too. How would they deal with it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, fundamentalist Christians just would incorporate them as angels and demons because they have been, they've been an integral part of the development, the evolution of Christianity. You have said that they are guiding the spiritual destiny of mankind. When you look at the story of Jesus, the Star of Bethlehem, the angels appearing to the shepherds, when you look at the resurrection, the sun rising in the middle of the night, terrifying the Roman soldiers to flee, seeing men dressed in white rolling back the stone, and the sun coming out of the cave where they buried Jesus, and then Jesus' ascension. He was taken up into heaven on a cloud and said he'd return in the same way. There is no doubt in my mind that ETs or an extraterrestrial presence. There was a book many years ago called "God Drives a Flying Saucer," and I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then St. Paul was psychopath for a while, and homicidal psychopath. He was going around killing Christians. On his way to Damascus, he got blasted, knocked right off his horse, and blinded by a brilliant light who spoke to him and told him, "Saul, why do you persecute me?" And then it counseled him to go to Damascus and find Peter and that he would be healed, and that's why Saint Paul, formerly Saul, became such a fervent believer in the way, which is what Christianity was called at the time. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's no doubt. But there is this war. It's an ongoing war. It happened in the skies. It happened in outer space. There was war in heaven. And the dragon and his angels fought, and Michael and his angels fought. And the dragon did not prevail. He was thrown into the earth. And so that battle now continues here. And it's been disguised in many ways. Back to you, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, what you're saying is quite fascinating. Yeah, just on a side note, I did a video with L.A. Marzulli, probably the most famous Christian ufologist, and I would say kind of a fundamentalist Christian ufologist. And we had like 12,000 hits and 300 comments, but all the 300 comments, they all agreed with him, they all disagreed with me. So I'm praying for Brian, you're deluded, you're possessed, you're demon possessor. So the Christians, at least the fundamentalists, they tend to think of it as kind of, well, he describes it as fallen angels or demonic. But I think from a Buddhist view, in Buddhist cosmology, there are like 31 planes of existence. It's interesting, like the mantis have stated that humans will not understand where we come from. We do not come from a planet. So I guess that's probably the best explanation. However, being a Buddhist, I think, well, maybe they're Brahmas. Like the Buddha described the fine material realm above the devas, like in the central sphere. Actually, in my book, I have a map of the Buddhist heavens. This is actually there's 6 lower heavens in Buddhist cosmology, and then beyond that, the Brahmas and the fine material sphere. These are the vast godlike beings. So I just wonder if mantis or something like that. It's a possibility. But Buddhism doesn't have a problem with this cosmology, but it seems the fundamentalist Christians do. But I think the Catholic Church, they're ahead of most Christians. Like since the years 2000, they seem to be adapting their flock. They say, well, if we can't limit God's creation, we could think of aliens as our brothers and sisters. So they're getting their flock ready, I think, for each
Right, I think so too. So they're okay for me on the celestial realm. The problems I have with them are on the terrestrial realm. I thought I might read to you, this is from the MJ12 briefing document. And if you give me a couple of minutes to squint my eyes and read this.
I'm a big fan of MJ12. You notice I dedicated my my hypothesis to Alan Dulles and Majestic 12.
I know, I take exception to that.
Really? You have a problem with Alan Dulles? What?
Yeah, I have big problems with him. I'll tell you about them later. Anyway, I have in my hand, in 2008 to 2010, I was recruited by the United States Navy to work with them for disclosure through the UN initiative. At that time, the Navy has wanted to tell the people the truth since the very beginning of this UFO era, 1947. But a turf war developed between Army Air Force, which was one thing, Army Air Force, and the Navy. The Army and the Air Force were split in 1947-48, and each turned into an individual service, but their mentality, their mindset, and their policies didn't change. So there's been a turf war between the Navy and the Army Air Force for all these years. In 2008, for the first time, through the natural rotation of the chairmanships of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Director of National Intelligence, and the Chief, Commander-in-Chief of Central Command, for one lucky period of time, all 3 offices were held by Navy admirals. General Mike Mullen, General Dan Fallon, and Admiral Dan Fallon and Admiral Mike McCullough. And these 3 got together and said, "This is our chance. You know, we can't achieve disclosure against the obstructions that Army Air Force and CIA and the deep state has placed in front of us. Why don't we try to go through the United Nations?" So at that time, I was recruited to become part of that because they read my works in UFO Digest, and quite frankly, the Navy officer said, "The Pentagon's read your your articles and those things. They can work with you, you know, you're a sane person, you're a rational person, and not like some of the other nuts around. So I agreed to work with them, and we came very close to getting it rolling in the United Nations. But the deep state is very powerful, and they used individuals in ufology to obstruct it. However, I am trusted, and I received a briefing document. I can't give it away, but I can read it and tell you about it. So I'd like to read these 4 categories of aliens, extraterrestrials, that as they have been categorized by the deep state and United States Air Force. So the first one is human-like, Earth-like humanoids. There are several variations, more or less, like ourselves. The majority of these are friendly and are the bulk of our EB contacts and have a high degree of psychic ability, and all are science and engineering of advanced nature. Then we have small humanoids or grays. The grays, so called for the hue of their skin, possessed by most of this type, are a sort of drone. They are not unlike the worker ants or bees. They are a type of genetic clone capable of sexual reproduction. With little or no independent will, they are mostly under the psychic control of the Earth-like humanoids who raise them like pets. A detailed explanation of this cultural oddity and its role in the form of space travel is these EBEs employ is addressed elsewhere in this briefing. Assuming the grays are under benign control, they are harmless. Non-humanoid ETs. There are several classes that come from other worlds where dominant morphology took a different evolutionary course. Many of these are dangerous, not for organized hostile intentions, but because such creatures do not hold human life as sacred. To them, we are animals despite our intelligence. A few are friendly because their cultures forbid all acts against living creatures. Thus far, contact has been minimal, with only a handful of unfortunate encounters. We come now to this interesting category, which I think is related to the praying mantis. Transmorphic entities. Of all the forms of EBE studied so far by Operation Majestic, these are the most difficult to understand or even give a description of. Essentially, such entities are not beings or creatures. Transmorphic entities exist in some other dimension or plane, which is to say, not in our space or time. They do not use devices to travel in space. Only once has a member of Majestic 12 contact team been privileged to be present when introduced by an Earth-like EBE to a transmorphic entity. In essence, these entities are composed of pure mind energy. They are not unlike ghostly spirits and seem to be only curious about our universe. They are said by other extraterrestrial biological entities to be capable of taking on any physical form that they choose, or that they channel their energy into matter. So when I read that, I said to myself, holy mackerel, that vase on my shelf there could be a transmorphic entity watching me all the time. So I think it's very interesting because I do feel that the praying mantids are transmorphic entities due to my experience with them. And I will discuss that a little bit later. Back to you, Brian.
Yeah, interesting. When you mentioned about shape shifting, what came to my mind is the Buddha himself said one of the hallmarks of the Devas is that they shape shift. People often don't think of Buddhism, what that's about meditation, right? But yeah, the Buddha described all these different types of Devas, but says shape shifting is very, very common. So it just supports what you're saying. I'm quite a religious Theravada Buddhist, so I like to give a plug for the Buddha when it comes to cosmology.
Well, I feel for the Buddha like I do about Alan Dulles. To be
Yeah, if you want to talk about that. Sure.
No. Well, Alan Dulles, as I was speaking to my friend David, he read a book a long time ago that I think it was by Linda Moulton Howe, and she relates that Alan Dulles had a contact with mantis aliens in Nazi Germany, which would explain.
Now that's so fascinating. I want to hear every word about this. You're the first person.
Yeah, I would like to get more. I invited Linda Moulton Howe to be with us, but she hasn't shown up yet.
Actually, she read my hypothesis about 2 weeks ago. She wrote to me about it with her feedback. So yeah, it's real on.
Tell us what she said.
Well, she said, why didn't I mention the cattle mutilations? Because that's her specialty. Yes. She was a bit disappointed. How come we don't mention this? So I wrote back this 7-point email about, I think it's obviously real. Cattle mutilation is valid. So I explained why I didn't include it in the hypothesis, because I really wasn't quite certain. And again, getting back to what I learned from Jeff Silver in his book and videos, he describes how he saw excuse my Tourette syndrome, it comes and goes, but he was on a craft in northern Saskatchewan, brought on a large alien craft, and in it they had 2 dead cows, and he's wondering what's going on. They explained to him, well, they asked for the cows' permission. They said, would you like to take rebirth in our society, our Grace Society? And they agreed, so they respected the cows and the bodies. So that they changed my whole perspectives. Now I just don't know what to think about cattle mutilations. It seems like a pretty negative thing to me. So I just explained this to Linda,
Well, there are human mutilations that almost no one wants to speak about, and they are consistent with the cattle mutilations. They do the same thing, whoever they are. I'm not saying it's the mantids, but whoever they are, they do the same thing for human beings that they do for cattle. So,
that's one of the worst ways to spend your afternoon is getting mutilated by aliens.
Or any time. Then I'm going to try to start the screen share, because there is another praying mantis video that I would like to share with all of you, which brings in this concept of the predatory nature. The predatory nature of the mantis. And this will explain to you the dialogue that I will share with you regarding my interaction, my conversation, I would call it, with the praying mantids, the 9 that came to visit me. And I'll explain to you why they came to visit me as well. And it has to do all with spiritual connection, telepathy, the intensity of remote viewing, and all of this was wide awake, so I won't say lucid dreaming. So let's play this for a little while and get an idea of the man.
Amazing world of animals and uncover the secrets behind their incredible abilities. Today, we're exploring one of nature's most fascinating predators, the praying mantis. Just how strong is this seemingly delicate insect? Stick around to find out. The praying mantis, named for its distinctive front legs that are often folded in a prayer-like position, is a master of disguise and a formidable hunter. Found worldwide in various climates, mantises are known for their incredible strength, agility, and predatory skills. But what makes these insects so powerful? First, let's take a closer look at the anatomy of the praying mantis. These insects have a unique body structure, with their triangular heads and large, compound eyes giving them excellent vision. Despite their slender build, mantises are equipped with powerful, muscular front legs designed for grasping and holding onto prey. These legs are armed with sharp spines that help them securely grip their victims, preventing any chance of escape. A praying mantis can catch and hold prey much larger than itself, showcasing its impressive strength. But strength isn't just about raw power, it's also about speed and precision. Praying mantises are incredibly fast, capable of striking their prey in just milliseconds. Their swift, deadly strikes are so fast that they're often hard to see with the naked eye. In slow motion footage, you can truly appreciate the speed and accuracy of these incredible hunters. Praying mantises are versatile hunters, employing a range of techniques to catch their prey. Their strength is complemented by their ability to blend into their surroundings, making them perfect ambush predators. They can patiently wait for hours, blending seamlessly with leaves and branches before striking with lightning speed. This combination of patience, camouflage, and raw power makes them highly effective hunters. When we compare the strength of a praying mantis to other insects, it becomes even more impressive. For instance, ants are known for their ability to lift objects many times their own body weight. While mantises might not lift heavy objects, their ability to overpower and subdue prey larger than themselves demonstrates a different kind of strength, one that relies on leverage, speed, and precision. While not all mantises have the gift of flight, many species do possess fully developed wings, allowing them to take to the air for short bursts of speed. These strong wings, combined with their lightweight exoskeletons and flexible bodies, make them incredibly agile creatures capable of navigating their environments with ease. Praying mantises have even been known to take on other formidable predators. In some cases, they've been observed capturing and eating small birds, frogs, and even other mantises. Their ability to tackle such diverse prey showcases their incredible adaptability and strength as predators. Strength also plays a crucial role in the mating rituals of praying mantises. Female mantises are often larger and stronger than males, and in some species, the female may even consume the male after mating. This cannibalistic behavior is believed to provide the female with the necessary nutrients to produce healthy offspring, highlighting the intense and sometimes brutal nature of these fascinating insects. Praying mantises face numerous threats from various predators, including birds, bats, spiders, and even larger members of their own species. Their strength and agility play a crucial role in their survival, allowing them to evade capture or deter attackers through camouflage, idiomatic behavior, and physical prowess. Finally, the praying mantis serves a valuable ecological role as a natural pest control agent. By preying on a wide range of insects, they help maintain balance within ecosystems and can be utilized by gardeners and farmers to protect their plants from harmful pests. So, how strong is a praying mantis? With its powerful front legs, lightning-fast strikes, and versatile hunting techniques, the praying mantis is a true powerhouse in the insect world. Its strength lies not just in raw power, but in its speed, precision, and adaptability. The next time you see a praying mantis, remember that you're looking at one of nature's most efficient and fascinating predators. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of the praying mantis, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Zoologist, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on our latest wildlife explorations. Thanks for watching and stay curious.
Yes, thanks for watching. Stay curious and stay circumspect. That means look all around you. Use your peripheral vision. Now, I'd like to say, I am enjoying, the reason I am, honestly, who I am today, has a lot to do with praying mantis. Because I'm enjoying my 55th anniversary in Chinese martial arts. And the reason that I got into Chinese martial arts was exactly the praying mantis. I had a friend in the late 1960s who loved to follow me. He was a kind of groupie for me on the fencing team. He loved to watch me fence. And I said, why are you interested? He said, because I like martial arts. And I said, what are martial arts? And then he informed me that it was a whole field of study in Asia. We didn't have that term, martial arts, in America. So I said to him, what do you do? He says, I practice something called praying mantis. And he wouldn't show me for the longest time because it was very secretive. And I finally said to him, listen, man, you know, you're going all over the place with me on the buses to the fencing matches, and they're showing you everything. At least you can do is show me what praying mantis is. I won't tell anybody. So he performed it for me. The first form of the southern praying mantis. There's northern praying mantis and the southern praying mantis. The northern praying mantis uses a lot of long leg kicks and long leg sweeps, and the southern praying mantis is very tight and it uses the hands. So I'm going to show you a couple of movements here. This is a facsimile of how the mantis holds, and he does this open hand thing like this, and it tears. This is tearing motion. It also hooks. These are hooking motions. And then there's these motions. And I was so impressed. What I saw was an Egyptian hieroglyphic come to life. That's what my impression was. If you took all of these Egyptian hieroglyphics and sequenced them into an animation, this is probably what it would look like, because the posture was so long, so erect, and it had this proportion that I find in Egyptian hieroglyphics. So I got into martial arts. I started looking, and I heard about Kung Fu. He said praying mantis Kung Fu. So I thought all Kung Fu was praying mantis, much to my surprise. My friend Alex said, I've got a Kung Fu school. He's the top grandmaster in the whole world of this Fujia Pai. So I joined. About 4 months into it, I really enjoyed it. I turned to one of my teachers and I said, hey, when do we learn the praying mantis? He said, what? This is a tiger claw school. You got to go to a praying mantis school. That's how naive I was. But ultimately, I made contact with a really talented adept named Ralph Mitchell, and he was a student of a Chinese Kung Fu, praying mantis Kung Fu teacher named Ding Fu Mark, who was the top man in the world. So that's how I got involved in it. So this gave me this insight, let's call it, into this insectoid mentality. You know, it's praying mantis is very cold. Tiger is very hot. But I combined all of them. But ultimately, Tai Chi is what drew me spiritually to the core. And I've been practicing Tai Chi for 53 years now. And the reason I'm here is it saved my life so many times that I can't count them. But what I want to go into right now is my own praying mantis experience with the mantis, which I'm happy to share with you. I've had a lot of experiences with extraterrestrials. As a matter of fact, my first experience with extraterrestrials was when I was 3.5 years old. And I believe it was a short gray, or what is popularly called now a chupacabra, which is like a hunting dog for higher level extraterrestrials. So that was a terrifying experience I had at 3.5 years old. But it was actually the first trauma that I can tell you. That experience of making eye contact with this creature that was in my grandfather's house, I saw it and I was terrified. And that's why I call it the first traumatic experience of my life. But for the rest of my life, I have known that reality is not as is described to us by general science, and that this other realm exists. My brother was abducted by Grays in 1962, which traumatized him. He was only 7. And that's to give you an idea of how long I've been dealing with abductees. My brother, Rudy, was my first case of extraterrestrial abduction. So I've been interested in all my life. In 1997, Richard Hoagland was living in Hoboken. We were working very closely together. He called me up to tell me that a UFO had come into orbit and had parked itself 200 miles off California, off the Monterey. He said, the Naval Research Laboratories have just called me to tell me that the UFO was parked off Monterey. It's huge, and they have it on the weather satellite, goes west. So go there. He says, I can't capture the video or the frame. Go there and get it before they take it off. So I raced to the Naval Research Laboratories and the Go West satellites. And yes, there was a huge, huge object in this satellite photo of Canada, the Western United States, the Eastern Pacific, Alaska. There it was. And I worked for 16 hours trying to get to the core of this. I downloaded the photograph and then applied my computer graphics skills to it, trying to enlarge it, enhance it, improve the gamma, the brightness, the sharpness, etc., etc., etc. After 16 hours, I thought I got it. It was a cigar-shaped UFO of immense proportions. I would say it was a couple of miles, at least a mile. My estimate is a couple of miles. Cigar-shaped, cylindrical, but what I was able to bring out was that this cylinder opened up with a roll top door. So the roll top would go up like this, and what would be left would be two planes. One was the landing plane, like an aircraft carrier, but the whole other side, the conning tower, would be the full length. Or so it wasn't a runway with a conning tower. It was a runway with the full length, and that was actually the hangar. So this is where they would deploy the scout ships, which are smaller, to come down to do their thing, visit people. So as I said, I worked for 16 hours with such intensity, looking at the monitor. The intensity was so great that this is what happened. At the end of 16 hours, it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. I did a meditation that was taught to me by my Tai Chi master, Professor Cheng Nan Ching. Deep breathing meditation before going to sleep is a wonderful way to rest peacefully. And after about 2 minutes of doing this breathing meditation, suddenly a blue light sparked out of my heart chakra, and it flickered. It was like a candle, but it was a blue candle. It was just flickering away. And this blue light went through the room. When that happened, I looked and I saw there were 9 beings in the corners and along the walls. They all looked like they had black hoods on. And when I saw them, they all jumped as one. One thought, he sees us. And I thought, yeah, I see you. And then
wow.
Instantly, from the corners of the room and the walls of the room, they were right around me. And right here, as far away from me, was the leader. There were 9 praying mantids surrounding my bed, which is just in this other room. 3 on my left, 3 at the foot of my bed, and 3 on my right. 7 feet tall, and 10 at 2 feet long. And I'm going to share with you the dialogue that I had with the leader. I'm also going to try to imitate his voice. He said, "You see us, but you are not afraid." And I said, "I'm not afraid. I can handle your form. I grew up with cockroaches, water bugs, and insects. I can handle your form." Then he turned to the others and he said, "He is not afraid of us. He can handle our form." And all of them, as a hive, said, "Mm." Then he turned to me again. And let me see how big my hand is. Right here. His eye was this close to me, and I'm looking into his eyes, and he says to me, Do you think your people and my people can learn to live with one another? And instantly I said to him, yes, if we agree not to eat each other. And he turned to them and he said, he thinks his people and our people can learn to live together as long as we do not eat each other. And they all went, Now, while this dialogue was going on between the two of them, I happened to look down my body and I saw the most incredible sight, one of the most incredible sights of my life. I saw the other 8 mantids leaning over me really close to my body with their antennas flickering like this. And they were all doing this. And they were going back and forth over my body about 2 inches above my flesh. And I realized, oh my God, they're reading me, they're studying me. And Brian, as I mentioned, I was a fencer. And the analogy I have for what I saw was, imagine 16 fencers. 16 fencers with their foils opposing each other and just waving them wildly at each other, but not a single one touched, not a single one clicked or clacked. They were interweaving, and I said to myself, I'm in the presence of such intelligence that's incomprehensible and such sensitivity that it's incomprehensible. The other thing I'll tell you now that I've never revealed before, their antennae were not just long like sticks. They had little hairs, each one like fibers, like fuzz coming out of them, which made them even more sensitive than just a touch or probe. They were reading the field of my life. And then as this happened, as that was happening, I thought to myself, this feeling came up and said, Robert, don't trust these guys. They don't know the meaning of trust, a contract, an agreement. They're only out for themselves. And I thought, and then the leader had done this conversation and started to turn back to me. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I hope he didn't hear that. And I looked at him and there was no reaction. And I said to myself, oh, he didn't understand that because that wasn't a thought. That was a feeling. Because even though I expressed it to you in words, what came up in me was a sensation, a feeling, intuition, instinct. Robert, don't trust these guys. They don't know the meaning of trust, a contract, or an agreement. They're out only for themselves. So I'm very cautious about them, as benevolent, as benign as anybody wants to portray them. I am circumspect about that. Back to you, Brian.
I guess it's wise to be circumspect. I know my eldest brother, he doesn't agree with me. He says, oh, Brian, you're just a believer type. You're too trusting. So I guess it's good policy to be circumspect. But I appreciate you saying that the mantis have intelligence and sensitivity. I did a video once with a woman, Donna Lynn, and she's had a relationship with mantis throughout her life. And she said she's never felt that love from a man. And once you felt that love, you'll never get that from a man. So even though when people see them, like Jeff Salver described when he first saw this mantid, had this visceral reaction, like it's scary. But the actual emotional feeling people have is often one of no fear, that they feel there's a lot of wisdom and love coming from the mantid. So,
well, can I tell you something about my theory about that?
Sure. It's your show.
We are alive because love lives within us. When Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, literal, the life inside our bodies, circulating, the life force, is the Christ life. And that is love. But because we're all of us humans are always together, we don't sense it. We're isolated by our egos. But when we're in the presence of the alien, which is cold and unloving, our love emerges and we feel it. And then many people mistakenly think that that's the love of the alien coming toward you, but no, it's just your love is palpable and your love is surrounding you to protect you
Oh,
from whatever.
so you don't think there's a love coming from the mantid?
No, I think it's your love rising to your consciousness in the absence of love in these creatures.
Oh, I
They
didn't
were
think
curious.
about that. I never actually thought about that. Thank
I
you.
didn't feel love. I didn't feel love from the mantids. I felt curiosity. They were just shocked. You know, he sees us, but he's not. He sees us. That was the first thing. Like, holy, you know, like we say, holy yes, holy yes, he sees us. And I thought, yeah, I see you. Phew. And then curiosity, like, wow, you know, you're a weird one. You're not afraid of us? No, I'm not afraid of you. I can handle your form. That's what I said to him.
But yeah, I met many people I've seen mantis did not feel a sense of love. They just saw a mantis, or sometimes incidentally on a large craft on a landing bay, you'll see a mantis work in the distance with some grays. Yeah, they didn't always feel love. You know, sometimes they didn't have much feeling.
I think that the love is a projection and a defense mechanism, but I know love. I've had, as I said, they have that transmorphic ability because, you know, they blinked in. They were in the room, practically speaking. They were in the room, but I couldn't see them till the blue light came out of my heart chakra after that meditation. And that blue light was flickering, making them visible. So I believe that they came because they felt my scrutiny. I was at that computer. See, the satellite was sending down the image to the computer. It was coming through the monitor, and my chi, my energy was going into it with such intensity that I think it reversed the pathway through the internet, back up to the satellite, from the satellite to their spacecraft, and they said, whoa, who's that? Who's that?
Oh,
Somebody's looking at us. We got to find
maybe.
out who this guy is. And I think that's why they came down. Curiosity. So
Maybe.
that's my theory. Before we turn to questions and answers, I know that Dr. Brandenburg and Maurice and Alan have some questions. I have in my hand a copy of the treaty that was signed by the United States government secretly, or the deep state secretly, with the extraterrestrials. And I'd like to read you I believe it's 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 points. Okay. So this is for all of us. We should have known this a long time ago. The preceding diplomatic treaty was drafted. This guy needed proper English. He says the proceeding is what it should see. It's like the preceding. The proceeding diplomatic treaty was drafted by the director of the Majestic 12 operation and a joint committee of extraterrestrial visitors and representatives of the U.S. Diplomatic Corps as a statement of intent. It was ratified and signed at Kirtland Air Force Base. It's actually another error. They say Texas. Kirtland is in New Mexico. On July the 18th, 1954, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower and an individual on behalf of the EBEs. Each subsequent holder of the executive office has continued to uphold the intent of this policy toward the aliens. Beyond the statement of intent, basic agreement has been reached on the following negotiated issue. Point number 1, the extraterrestrials will refrain, where and when possible, from open display of their presence to the public at large. The extraterrestrials will submit substantiating proof and listings of all persons contacted from among the public at large, or that have been removed from the earth for purposes of contact or cultural exchange. In no case shall anyone be abducted by the EBEs be subject to knowing harm or kept against their will for longer than 48 hours. The extraterrestrials will avoid any willful contact with representatives of the public news media or any private investigators of the UFO phenomenon, groups, or writers dedicated to the same intentions. The U.S. government will provide, through the defense logistics agencies, reutilization and marketing services, such items as are needed for the personal comfort of those visiting EBEs who may be sequestered in its care. The U.S. government will provide a section of the Majestic headquarters base in Nevada as an embassy compound for the EBE visitors and equip it with to their needs. Any exchange of technical, scientific, or social information will be conducted item for item and in such a manner as to assure that both parties have equal gain from the process. Except for many fascinating details which are available under the separate cover through either Operation Majestic or the Defense Intelligence Agency's Office of Counterintelligence, this concludes the assessment of the situation and statement of position section of this preliminary briefing paper. That is the Majestic 12 briefing document. Now you understand why I label myself MJ13.
Oh, 13. So what's the 13th?
Me.
Woo!
Because I know as much as they knew then, and I know more than they knew then.
So you're saying Alan Dulles was really working for you, Robert?
I'll smack him around the next time I see him and tell him he should have done it differently. Yeah. Well, the other person to mention, of course, is James Jesus Angleton.
Yes, he was at the heart of Watergate too, wasn't he? I think toppling.
He and toppling people practically for the same reasons. You know, President Kennedy was killed because of his intention to divulge the presence, the extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
presence.
I think so. I've got a meetup coming up, but I give a lot of thought to Alan Dulles and Kennedy and
well,
secrecy.
he was going to do it on November 22nd at 1 o'clock at the Dallas Trade Mart. President Kennedy was going to sneak out some index cards and tell the world the truth about Roswell, try to assuage anxieties about, hostile extraterrestrials. So this book, which I'm going to give you the link to Captain Robert Collins' book, The Black World of UFOs, Except for Disclosure. And he goes into the aviary, of which I'm a second generation member.
Yeah.
I was introduced to many members of the aviary, and I got briefings from them.
That's cool.
Yeah. Dr. Bruce Maccabee.
Yeah, great man.
Yeah, he was wonderful. We were friends for 20, 25 years and shared a lot. He was...
Well, it's great to work with you, Robert. You knew all these people for so long. It's kind of an honor to be on your show and just to talk to you. And also John Brandenburg, all these folks.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you. You brought the subject up, and I'm happy to address it.
Well,
now, I want to read you this comment that Robert Collins inserted into his book regarding mantis tilings. He has a comment here about Angleton circa 1952. They did a meeting. Remember, it says only once in the history of MJ12 has a member of MJ12 had the privilege of standing in the presence of a transmorphic entity after being introduced by a humanoid type of EBE. Well, there's a lot of magic involved in this. These spooks were doing these things to conjure these entities. They have a protocol for being able to contact them. Well, they had a meeting, and Angleton wrote, circa 1952, and I quote, "When the bugs spoke, those in the back of the room fainted," unquote.
Yeah.
And this has a link to one of my favorite UFO websites on the planet is UFO BC. .ca.
I'm giving a talk about them on Saturday. I mean, of course, they're right here in Vancouver. I know Richard asked me not to give out his last name because he had calls in the middle of the night. But yeah, I was an associate of theirs for 5 years, actually.
No, that's great.
I know the guys.
Graham Conway was a very good friend of mine. And,
great. Yeah, you know, he's a legend here. And I joined FOBC months after he died, so I never met him.
Gord Heath is another one. Now, if you go to...
Yeah, I know Gord.
If you go to UFOBC.ca, you can find 30 Mantis accounts by a fellow named Jim G. And Jim has had a lot. He's also a remarkable...
Well, I'll look that up. Thank you.
A remarkable artist who was able to draw a lot of the things that he experienced.
These are some printouts I print out today from UFOBC. I'm giving quotes about UFO sightings in Surrey because we're having a meeting with my Vancouver UFO and prepared for contact meetup this Saturday in Surrey.
I could put you in touch. I could put you in touch with a very close friend of mine. The reason I went public, I was a secret UFO researcher for 60 years. And secret. I didn't want people to know I was
because of the
involved.
stigma. Because it's crazy. You're crazy.
Well, exactly. But it really was because I was involved in the John F. Kennedy assassination so prominently, so publicly, that I thought, oh, if people, associate me with UFOs, it's going to taint my work. But
do you think do you think they were justified in assassinating President Kennedy? Like, this is a theory that the gray aliens want disclosure to be sure. Like, I'm a minority. I feel disclosure must be done gradually. And in 1963, I feel the world wasn't ready for the extraterrestrial truth. And not ready today. It still remains gradual. So I have a very controversial opinion on President Kennedy's assassination. Did Allen Dulles feel that they had to protect humanity?
No, they were protecting themselves. I'm sorry. They were protecting themselves, their purview, their privilege. They were not protecting humanity by lying and murdering the president of the United States.
Is there some doubt about this?
Justified. Murder is never justified.
Oh, is that true? I mean,
I do believe it's true.
But is there an element of doubt here?
The people.
I mean,
well, that's your doubt.
That's
okay.
I know Susie Hansen would not want me quoting her, but she was on the craft in 1983, and there's big, like they have these lecture halls. Like here, you see the city sides. This is from Susie Hansen's drawings. They're in the lecture hall, and they explain to like 250 humans there that disclosure has to go slowly, etc. They're explaining this. These are people brought up on craft and semi-conscious state. And people were protesting, oh, why can't we have it now? And they just finished explaining to them why it has to be done slowly. So I really was influenced. I have to give credit to Susie Hansen. Like, I was like most people in the UFO community. I think the government's corrupt. We deserve full disclosure. They're immoral. But now I've completely changed my mind. I agreed it should be gradual. So my feeling about President Kennedy growing up, I was a real big Kennedy fan. My dad actually called me a Kennedy freak, but I feel it was in fact justified in stopping President Kennedy. I wish they could have just taken him aside and said, sir, you can't do this. I hope you have your second term.
They tried, but he felt the American people had the right to know. And that
it's a dramatic story because the mystery
manipulated. Every president has been manipulated, and we got on the wrong track of history as a result of that murder, and we almost lost the country over the last few years. So hopefully we're back on track. President Trump is the man who revealed the UFO reality through the U.S. Navy initiative. It was the Navy.
Yeah, I am happy with Trump's efforts there. I'm happy with Trump's efforts.
And there's going to be a hearing this coming week. It's moving along. It's long overdue. So,
but the Kennedy assassination is the murder mystery of the century and the UFO question all in one thing. It's such a big deal.
Yeah, that's
I think it's justified. I think they're justified in preventing Kennedy from destabilizing society. Like it threatens religion.
Well, you don't know what would have happened. You can't say that. It's not sure.
Yeah. I was on a video with Dr. Karen McLeod. She's a psychologist. She said, well, Brian, her good example, she said when Copernicus and Galileo said, the world's the earth revolves the sun. The Catholic Church may have sincerely felt, well, people can't handle the truth. This is wrong. Yet it turned out to be enlightenment. It was good that they told us.
Well, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. If President Kennedy had been allowed to enlighten the public, the whole history of the later 20th century, would have been altered, and we would not.
Yeah, maybe it could have led to an enlightenment. I guess the reason why I dedicated my hypothesis to Alan Dulles and Majestic 12 is mainly the secrecy of Majestic 12, that they're unsung heroes. Like
They're not. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not. They were trading human lives for technological advancement and their own enrichment, the creation of.
Well,
the
maybe
military.
that's true. That's
No,
true, but
I don't
also,
believe in trading human beings, abducted, dissected, organ harvested by some extraterrestrial race in the name of national security.
yeah, well, I did one video with Stanton Friedman, a famous ufologist, and he said in 1947, when Roswell crashed, it would have been totally irresponsible to just tell the world, well, we found this flying saucer in bodies we just thought you'd like to know. He said it was just after World War II, and you don't want the Soviets to know about this. It has to be. So we can understand there is justification for secrecy, for at least for a while. So
well, I
to
love,
be really
I love Stanton
responsible,
Friedman, but I disagree on that point. And many people, James Forrestal, Secretary of Defense Forrestal,
yes,
he was killed.
murdered.
Yeah, he was murdered. He was thrown
Yeah.
out of a 17-story window. There were no bedsheets at Bethesda. He didn't try to commit suicide.
No, he is murdered.
No, he was murdered.
Hey, it makes for
And
a
you know
great
what?
discussion, doesn't it? Makes for a great debate and discussion. I mean, we can do 3 or 4 videos.
I think it's fine.
like-
I think it's fine. I also want to point out that he was a mentor of President Kennedy.
He was, yeah.
And
Kennedy
President
knew about
Kennedy-
Roswell. Yeah.
President Kennedy visited the grave of James Forrestal on May 30th, Memorial Day of 1963.
Really?
He was courageous enough to walk the same path, knowing the threat that he faced.
Well, it's one of the most
But
powerful
now
stories in American history. This is such a powerful story. It's worth discussing. Like, I can't be 100% sure of my views, but at least I'll bring up the gradual disclosure argument, you know.
Yeah, I think it was wrong from the get-go. America, freedom of choice, deciding whether Democrat or Republican, is based on accurate information and knowledge, and they deprived us of the most important information.
But see, this isn't just America. This is entire planet Earth. Now, 8 billion people.
entire
You're
planet.
telling 8 billion people. It's not just America, right?
Yeah, but the other 7,700,000 people.
700 million, 7 million. Okay.
Yeah, they have to make their own way with it, and every country is being affected by this, and all of these wars. I believe these wars have been to supply the aliens with what their needs.
Well, what about religion?
Organ harvesting is one of them.
Like, wouldn't it
Tissue
disturb
harvesting.
religion though? Like the spiritual sophistication of the ETs would show, our religions are a bit moribund, a bit backwards.
Who
It's gonna-
cares?
Yeah, but there's
who cares?
55% of the world's population, right? Christians and Muslims are 4.5 billion people. It would upset them. So maybe it
Who
should be done
cares?
gradually.
Who cares? I'll tell you for the 5th time. Who cares? Another religion or another religious interpretation would have emerged from it. And it's not necessarily disastrous, in my opinion. But we will never know because they took it upon themselves to sacrifice John F. Kennedy for their secrecy, for their privilege, for the continued exchange of human cargo.
Well, yeah,
for
you've got some good
extraterrestrial
points. Yeah.
technology.
But from the
Anyway,
ET mind, from the ET perspective, maybe they think it should be done gradually. Like we don't know what thinking
no,
or
they
how the
don't.
ETs think.
No, they don't. They've been hiding since the beginning of time. They've been hiding their identities behind veils of God, veils of godliness.
But are they justified in doing so?
Hell no.
Do we know
I'm a
that? How do we know?
I'm a human. I'm a human. This planet belongs to us.
Yeah,
It
but
doesn't
you
belong to
agree
them.
that they're more intelligent than us. They might be wiser than us.
Well,
Sure.
intelligent. Let me. I love that argument because I say a higher intelligence does not necessarily mean that they have a higher spiritual standing. The perfect example is the Nazis. The Nazis were the most advanced, scientifically and technologically advanced civilization the world had ever known. And look at what they did with it. They were not spiritually enlightened.
Yeah, the Holocaust is a tragedy. It's a
Forget the
terrible
Holocaust.
thing.
The Holocaust, the Holodomor, everybody was in it. Stalin was worse than Hitler. And it's just divide and conquer. The aliens have had humans at each other's throats for their own advantage since time immemorial.
I agree
And
with
now
that. I think it's
time-
reptilians. I agree. I think it's the reptilians
Yeah,
controlling
yeah, that's the other
the
part.
city of London,
you know?
the globalists think it's reptilian,
Yeah,
but not
that's
mantids,
right.
not the spiritual mantids and grays, Robert.
Oh, I'll tell you honestly, my life was altered by my experience with the mantids. I gained an incredible respect and admiration for the insect world. I I have only stomped on a bug by accident and only once by intention. Since that time, I grew in my respect for the insect world. Our world wouldn't be here without them.
And me too. I had to catch some bees this morning with my cat and get them outside.
Yeah, there's a symbiotic relationship between us and insects. You know, the bees pollinate all everything, and without the bees,
Yeah, I wouldn't kill an
insect.
insect either. I agree.
No, well, I don't do it intentionally anymore as a result of my experience with the mantids. But the grays stink, and then there are the others. There are demonic entities which have had encounters, and that's another mystical realm I'll relate to you at another time. But right now, it's time to turn the conversation open to
Yes.
comments and questions. Dr. Brandenburg and Alan, if you can talk, or Maurice, or David, if he comes back. Anyway, Dr. Brandenburg, care to comment on this ongoing debate? Unmute your mic, please. John, unmute your mic. John, your mic is muted. And, we got your mic unmuted. We missed everything you said before.
Yeah, I just said I thank you for this most great issues of our history and of this whole disclosure problem and our basically our forming of relationships with the living cosmos, living intelligent cosmos. We're running into all these different species, and they find us fascinating. That's they might also find us tasty looking,
Yeah,
you know.
that's the problem.
And I'm very glad. Look, it says in the Bible, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And who are our neighbors now? Well, there are the mantids and the grays and the Pleiadians, who are easy to love because they look just like us. Though I trust them. I don't trust them completely because they look too much like us. So and then of course then there's the reptoids. Those are kind of broad, simplistic, broad brush categories. It's there is many different species out there as there are stars in the sky. They're like dust, and each of them is unique and different. And I'm glad you. We ought to seek friendly relations with them. We can learn a great deal from them. But at the same time, we have to realize that some of them have an agenda that is not in our interest. Just like on Earth, how many different agendas do you have here among the tribes and clans on Earth? You have some of which are pretty terrible,
Yeah.
especially historically, and we have to remember that. There's a principle in SETI, which is useful. It's called the principle of mediocrity, that says that the human race is not an aberration on the cosmos. It's part of its fabric. It's typical. So that means if you want to know what an intelligent life in the universe looks like, turn on the news and you can watch one part of it. And we're not, some parts of the earth are very enlightened and some parts are not. And your point about the Nazis having all this advanced technology, and what do they use it for? Just crimes that I don't even want to think about.
Self-aggrandizement. Self-aggrandizement. That's the word. And that's exactly what Dulles and Angleton and all of those spooks in the CIA and the D and Defense Department, self-aggrandizement, enriching
Well,
themselves,
of course,
elitism,
you know,
privilege.
they say, well, we're doing this for society. And, but, you know, there's always about the best you can hope for is enlightened self-interest.
I'd like to touch on love.
There's always, yes, yes.
I'd like to touch on the subject of love. I made reference to other experiences that I've had. And in 1997, I had an experience with a demonic entity. And this demonic entity was actually, again, materialized. So he was reaching, coming at me. He was a very foul, the most loathsome creature I've ever encountered in my life. And he was coming to get me. Right? He was fight this, Robert. You can't kill an undead. You can't kill a dead thing, because spiritually it was dead. He wanted my soul. And in that instant, I realized, you know, I can't, if I get into a fight with this, I guess a zombie that had no soul. It was animate but not alive. And I said to it, I changed my hand from fist to finger, and I said, I love you. I love you because God created you. And if he created you, there must be a good reason. And when I said those words, there was a crack in my heart chakra, literally like the crack of an egg. It went, and this wave of heat, of love propagated. And I could actually see it changing the atmosphere like convection currents, convection in the desert. But it was just like that. It was changing the atmosphere. And he was reaching for my heart, to claw my heart.
Oh, yes.
And when that wave touched his hand, it burned him. He went, I just screamed, and poof, he disappeared. And I said to myself, oh my God, that thing disappeared like a vampire seeing sunlight. And love protected me. And every time that I've been in critical
the love of, you know, what I do is I realize, by the way, the paranormal or psychic kind of, but it came through the neo-Pentecostal movement, a charismatic or neo-Pentecostal church, and also, you know, we would say, if you were trying to talk in modern language, you'd say, oh, interdimensional beings. Well, no, it was on, you know, a spiritual plane. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against dominions and powers. Paul talked about that. So, but I just wanted to, so I'm very familiar with that, and that this is my grounding, because I'm a strong Christian. It doesn't, the idea of aliens coming here and saying they can steal our souls or anything like that, I just, you know, that's nonsense. God has my soul. He's got it locked up. And now, but I do believe we have to do disclosure.
Yes.
And it must be done gradually, because I even have members of my own family that, despite all of the headlines, you know, I said, look, the stuff I heard in Washington, D.C. when I worked for 20. So out of respect for their feelings, what there is, I'll mention people, you know, the Brookings Institute study, there is something to that. Oliver Perry and his squadron of warships arrived in Japan to open Japan from being, you know, a hermit kingdom. The Japanese government received them, and it was a very peaceful visit. The Oliver Perry went out of his way to kind of intimidate the Japanese, because we wanted to establish trade, and also there were sailors washing up in Japan in lifeboats, and we couldn't get them back to return them to their families. So they wanted to open Japan, to open correspondence, but it was a very positive thing in the end. And what happened, though, was the reaction of the peasantry to this collision with the outside world, with these steamships with big cannons on them, and all of these foreigners and their foreign ways. And there were places in Japan that fell into complete chaos because people started saying it's the end of the world, and they were having wild orgies in the streets because they said these. I mean, the literal translation of the Japanese phrase that describes this period is "What the hell?
Yeah.
Everything is ending," and so the samurai lords had to impose order and tell everybody, get back to work, calm down and get back to work. So there is, that is one place where I encountered, there was a great societal upheaval because of contact with suddenly a new and larger world and more advanced technology. So the Brookings Institute, they do have, you can't reject their opinion. So we have to do this gradually. I will say also that because of my work on Mars, if we do Mars disclosure, we have an ET cover up. It's not just UFO/UAPs and interstellar objects and microbes and meteorites. It's the planet Mars, where there's a dead civilization with archaeology. And if we adopt the Mars disclosure route, because the culture there is extinct.
Are we sure? Are we sure?
This is not threatening.
Right.
This is not threatening. They're not going to come steal our souls. They're not going to come mutilate our cattle. They're not going to do anything like that. But I will also tell you that I agree with you, your assertion that the...
But they're already here.
I can't remember whether it was... What?
The Martians are
They're
already here.
already here.
Well, let me put it this way. The human mind is not obsessed with facts. It is obsessed with feeling.
Emotion.
Well, it has to do with
Now,
education. If something came down from outer space and had sex with a human femur, so how many times could this have been repeated? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying. Oh well, it's written in the Bible that the so-called sons of God saw that the human females were beautiful and decided to have babies with them, and these babies were, it's translated in some cases giants, but it means just great men, about whom many legends are written. This is all Greek legends of Zeus running around on Earth fathering children like Hercules and Perseus, things like this. So these ideas are already in our culture. Now, I will just simply tell you that the Catholic Church, especially the Jesuits, have done a careful study on this, and they concluded that we should be preparing to preach the gospel to the mantids and the grays.
Of course, they're going to say that.
Of course you're going to say that. Well, I've studied the Bible myself, and it's true. And so I wrote a book called Cosmic Jizz.
Oh.
Well, thank you,
and
John.
It has that. It lays this all out. Now, so now we praying mantises are a ferocious
and spiritual and highly different than ET.
As usual, the universe is a complicated place, just like the Earth is. Imagine trying to sort out all the different factions on Earth, and David Pfaff was talking about breakaway civilizations, and I said, David, which ones?
Right.
See, you can look at the secret governments. We probably have 3 secret governments, but I'm just trying to say that things are complicated, And once you realize that complexity is part of reality, then you realize some of these people want to be our friends, especially the people who look just like us, these Pleiadians. We're probably part Pleiadian, all of us. And then there's other species that are mutilating cattle and abducting people and doing sorts of terrible things. And, you know, by their fruit you shall know them.
Exactly.
Now, we're gradually, this is all our intimate, it's a passage. We're going through a passage, just like all of us do in life, a passage. And we're going to end up having a cosmic awakening. The best way, I think, to do that is through Mars disclosure, because it gets people over the speed bump of, are we alone in the universe? No, we're not. But the people on the planet Mars are dead, and we have to go up. And then what you do is you say, we have to go up there and investigate. Then you start, of course, some characters will say, well, why are they dead, John? And I'll say, well, we have to go up to Mars to find out.
Right.
That turns disclosure into a science fiction adventure movie.
Right.
Now, as
It
far as
certainly
the
does.
UFO, UAP,
Can I inject here? I'm sorry.
that's been going on for 80 years. That's been going on. Yeah.
What part
I'm
of
sorry.
disclosure do we give them? The current disclosure where we're using stargates in order to go back and forth like Andrew Bellagio to Mars and to the moon? Or are we going to give them the 250 year ago version of Mars where it was only indigenous people that remained living in tunnels?
You know, I don't know exactly what's on Mars besides the archaeology. But I will just say Mars has microbes on it, and it has archaeology. And what I began by saying is the human mind we are the result of a survival process in evolution. And that means we tend to be optimists, even if that seems mindless at some times, points in our history. And we also have circuit breakers in our head that if we go down a mental thought channel that we decide is probably not good psychologically, our circuit breakers pop. And what they will here, the human race will be perfectly happy to focus on a dead civilization on Mars, especially one that looked like us. And if you bring up the UFO, UAP thing, they'll simply say, oh, those are,
Yes.
the human race is a master
Right.
of doublethink. And it does that because it's a route of psychological survival. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's sometimes essential to our survival. To keep we have to have a mental attitude that is positive, looking forward to the future. And so what we do is we say, we're going to push the UFO controversy down the road. That's, full disclosure. And then we'll focus on Mars, and that will get people over that'll be the Copernican moment. But then, not only did we have Copernicus, we had everything that followed Copernicus. It was an expanding revelation.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
So there I
thank you
said my
very
piece,
much.
and
Thank you.
you guys can
Closing thoughts, or Maurice, if you have a question, take it now, or
Yeah.
you just go on to closing remarks from Brian Ruha.
It's just been fascinating. Go on with Brian. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Okay,
Yes,
Brian.
thank you for being here, Mark.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's exciting.
Oh, it's nothing, Maurice, nothing is more important in history right now
From this, yes.
than this.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Well, I guess the most important to me right now is the revered Alan Dulles. What was his relationship with the mantis, with James Jesus Angleton? Robert told us that story yet. I just want to know. I mean, I could say a lot more, but I want to know Alan Dulles and Amanda, I got to
Yeah,
hear it.
well, they basically made contact prior to the Roswell crash. The United States government was already in contact with this extraterrestrial group that had decided to settle on planet Earth. And this is revealed in a letter written by Einstein and Oppenheimer. They were Einstein and Oppenheimer were the real heads of MJ12, above the 12. The 12 were,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
They didn't get along.
and they didn't get along. But the point is,
Maurice wants to say something. I could just tell. Maurice, say something.
Well, it's just all fascinating to me. I don't have any real questions. I have to think.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But no, it's really great. So keep going, you guys.
Well,
Keep
it looks
going.
like you were bursting to say something. Here's you got to remember that we're dealing with a place where it's very difficult, Robert, Brian, Maurice, to get any documentation on all of this stuff that can be believed. We don't know exactly when the government decided that it wasn't alone. I heard it was at Cape Girardeau.
yes, exactly.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
About 1941, that suddenly this thing crashes, and yeah, I've seen
There are two, and those two photographs prove to me the authenticity of it. The two photographs are the second one, which I believe is the proof that the first one is real, was taken by one of the townsfolk who arrived with a box camera. I assume it was a box camera that had no flash. So what this guy did was really smart. He left the iris open, stood behind the news photographer who had the flash. He left it open. When the news photographer took his picture and flashed the scene, the illumination provided the photograph of the second man. But what the second guy had was the silhouette of the news photographer with his fedora hat holding the camera. So his shadow is in the foreground as the background is identical to the photography. Two photographs are being.
Is the second photograph showing two proverbial G-men in trench coats?
No trench coats. Local townspeople.
Okay, that was the picture I saw, and I thought, gee, well, that looks interesting.
Oh, you're thinking about another one. You're thinking about the one in Germany with two guys in trench coats holding this little guy by the hand.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Cape Girardeau was apparently we're getting ready to, World War II is already raging in Europe. Everyone knows we're going to get involved. And it was obvious to her they were going to get involved in World War II. And she had three brothers who were all going to be draft age. And she said it was obvious they were going to have to fight Hitler, but they just nobody wanted to do it. So it wasn't, she said the big question was, how is this actually going to happen? And then Pearl Harbor happened.
Yeah. We have a question from a listener here.
There's a picture of her and her sister and her three brothers on the farm in 1942 after they'd been drafted in the Army. And do you think they looked like they were full of patriotic fervor and eager to go get in this war in Europe? No, they did not.
Okay, wait to the close of the program. Let's get this question in.
I'm sorry.
Earth being covered with a grid of technology, 5G, they call 5G, but it seems to be more than that, and satellite systems, and all these different things have just come in the past 5 years and 20 years. And so life on Earth is being covered with this new kinds of frequencies. And we have CERN, we have nuclear energy, we have all kinds of, incredibly unusual phenomenon, as well as spiritually, we have so much going on. So I'm just wondering, what your views are regarding the present time that we're in. And I agree with Mr. Brandenburg that we have several different things happening at once regarding all the different beings involved, but we do seem to be under an overwhelmingly challenging moment in terms of life on Earth, and there's no way to avoid seeing that if you're following these things, and even on a human level, on society level, we seem to have a lot of Satanism, a lot of trafficking, and all kinds of things going on. So I just wonder, how does your view fit in with this reality on Earth?
The human race has been through very troubled times like this before. And you've got to remember that we are the descendants of a long, long line of survivors. Our brains are, it's not just that we can go through bad times and recover from them completely in a few years, but we're almost adrenaline junkies.
That's true. I'd like to say that everything
compare
Jill...
compare this to December 8th, the day after Pearl Harbor.
Right.
This is nothing. This is nothing. But my father and my uncles and everybody knew exactly what to do the next day. And they didn't know how anything was going to turn out, but they got through it. And we're going to get through this.
Yeah, we are. But I want to say that everything that Jill brought up, all the negativity, the mRNA, the deaths, the mass death, I believe all of that is part of the alien agenda and is part of a terraforming of the Earth to move us aside to make room for the aliens.
It could be. That could be a major calling. It's part of my thesis as well. There may be a calling of the population.
Yes.
That's part of my hypothesis. Yeah.
David, do you have a comment? We're ready to close our
You
program.
can comment on this, David.
Well, I will say I believe the vaccination program is definitely part of an alien agenda. But I'll close with this one. What science refuses to offer, science fiction may provide.
Yes.
And science fiction has a really interesting habit of becoming science fact.
It does.
Right? You know, one of the things, this thing that we're doing here right now, this Zoom meeting, it goes back to that phone call in 2001, A Space Odyssey, where the little girl was talking to her father. He's up on the space station on his way to the moon. And he says to her, "Hi, honey, and your birthday's coming up. What would you like?" And she says, "I'd like to have a bush baby." And then it goes back. But that was, you know, pure imagination, pure science fiction. And here we are living the reality of it. The other thing is in Dune, the movie, the original Dune by Dino De Laurentiis, when Paul Atreides is getting ready to go to Dune, he has to find out about the planet. And he has this computer and he starts working on it. He sees the planet. And when I saw the movie 25 years later, I said, holy mackerel, he's got a Macintosh. You know?
Yes,
So
that's right.
these things, science fiction becomes science fact. Last word to Brian Ruhan, our guest of honor, who's responsible for this dialogue or colloquy. So
yeah, well, I have my
closing
one
remarks, Brian.
mantis fin behind me, but I'd actually rather turn over my closing remarks here. What's the story of Al Dulles with the mantid and James Jesus Angleton? Because these are the revered protectors of the secret with Majestic 12. Can you share anything of that?
Well,
I give my last words to you.
Yeah, well, they have the protocols for making contact, and they decided to have a general meeting of the higher ups of the deep state, the CIA and Defense Intelligence Agency, and a group of them gathered in a room, and they, let me use the word, they invoked the presence of the bug, as James
The
uses.
revered
The
mantis,
revered
the
bug.
revered
He calls them the bug.
beings.
Okay, he says when the bug spoke, people in the back of the room fainted, and I think But here's another thing.
Do you know when and where? Like what year? What situation?
1952. 1952.
And Alan Dulles was there.
I want to see more documentation on
well, I'm
this.
going to give you the book from Robert Collins, and then you can follow up. He's got notes, and I've given you some from my own briefing document. Keep searching. With that, folks, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who joined us. I'd like to thank Brian Ruha, Dr. Brandenburg, Dr. Pfaff, who's there.
Dr. Pfaff.
My friend and mentor. I'm very grateful to him. He's helped us keep the Morningstar Report on the air for many years. Maurice Ham and Marilyn in the back there. And of course, Alan Fredrickson and Beyond the Undisclosed. So this video is available on that YouTube channel known as Beyond the Undisclosed, and I'll send you the link when we're ready. But again, folks, thank you for joining us, and I hope
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Maurice.
Have a good night.
Thank you, David.
And David, of course, he's the best. Oh, and let's not forget that Dr. John Brandenburg wrote a marvelous book that's called Morningstar Pass.
Collapse of the UFO cover-up, and
the collapse.
Soon to be an epic movie.
Absolutely. All of this is part of that. We're working to see the collapse of the UFO cover-up. And be sure to tune in next week. September 9th, I believe, is the date that's set in Congress. Ana Paulina Luna is the chairperson of the UFO committee. So September 9th, tune into C-SPAN. You'll probably get the whole thing there. So thank you all. Very, very grateful.
Thank you all. Live long and prosper.
God bless you.
Long and prosper. Well, happy and peaceful.
Absolutely.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.